My mother was the Queen for a very long time. And although you kind of know that this might happen, you don't really think about it very much.
The British royal family is no stranger to drama, but what just happened has left even the most loyal insiders stunned. Whispers of a power move by Princess Anne are turning into loud questions no one saw coming. People are now wondering if this step means the end of Camilla's role and the beginning of something entirely different. With so many eyes on the throne, the royal story has changed forever. Did Princess Anne really take charge in a way that left Queen Camilla in tears? Join us as we uncover how Princess Anne seized the crown. Princess Anne's confrontation. According to insiders, Princess Anne has stepped forward and taken control of Buckingham Palace, not just as a helper, but as the one now making the big decisions. Sources say Anne believes Camilla played a harmful role during the painful years of Charles and Diana's marriage. It's reported that behind closed doors, Anne has never forgotten the heartbreak Diana endured, nor the way Camilla remained in the picture while the world watched the young princess suffer. This is about everything that came before, and if the whispers are true, Anne directly confronted Camilla, telling her that her time as queen was over, not because of a scandal in the press, but because of a moral failure Anne could no longer ignore. But then, would you even blame the princess? Long before Diana ever entered the picture, Camilla was already in Charles's life. They first met in 1970 at a polo match in Windsor Great Park, and by 1971, they were romantically involved. But in 1973, Camilla married Andrew Parker Bowles, while Charles was away on naval duties. That didn't stop their bond from growing. Even after Camilla's marriage, she and Charles stayed in contact. This was something that would shape the future of the royal family in ways few could imagine. Fast forward to July 1981, Charles married Lady Diana Spencer in a grand ceremony watched by over 750 million people worldwide. But behind the fairy tale image, cracks had already begun to form. Diana later revealed that just days before the wedding, she discovered a bracelet Charles had made for Camilla. It had Fred and Gladys, the pet names they called each other, engraved on it. Diana confronted Charles, but the wedding still went on. The affair didn't stop there. According to Diana herself in her recorded tapes with Andrew Morton, shortly after the marriage, Charles had fully resumed his romantic relationship with Camilla. She once famously said, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." That reflected the deep emotional pain she felt as a wife pushed aside. It wasn't just about stolen glances or secret phone calls. The affair played out in real spaces. Charles and Camilla often met at her home in Wiltshire or at Highgrove, the prince's country estate. There were reports of late-night calls, and even staff began noticing how often Camilla appeared in Charles's daily life. The closeness between them was no longer subtle. It was evident to anyone paying attention. By 1992, things hit a public turning point. The release of Andrew Morton's biography, Diana, Her True Story, filled with revelations from Diana herself, painted a clear picture of the emotional isolation she endured. Then came the infamous Camillagate tapes in 1993, where a secretly recorded phone call between Charles and Camilla surfaced, revealing their deeply personal and intimate exchanges. The contents shocked the public and shattered whatever illusion of distance remained between them. And while all of this played out in front of the world, Princess Anne, Diana's sister-in-law, was watching too. Anne, known for her strong sense of duty and sharp moral compass, reportedly disapproved of the affair from early on. She saw what it did to Diana, and she definitely saw how Camilla remained in Charles's life, even while Diana tried to make the marriage work. On top of that, there's something else that often gets overlooked. Back in the early 1970s, Anne and Andrew Parker Bowles were romantically involved for a while, and though it didn't lead to marriage, mostly because Andrew wasn't considered a suitable match for a senior royal, the two remained close. So when Camilla eventually married Andrew, it added another complication to the history between the two women. Still, Camilla's biggest battle came later when she officially stepped into the spotlight as Charles's partner. The public wasn't forgiving. After Diana's tragic death in 1997, Camilla was seen by many as the reason Diana had suffered. That stigma followed her for years. In fact, a 2005 YouGov poll showed that only about 7% of Britons wanted Camilla to ever become queen. Most preferred she take a lesser title, like princess consort. That reaction didn't come out of nowhere. People had watched Diana's interviews, had heard her pain, and many blamed Camilla directly. Even after marrying Charles in 2005, Camilla didn't shake off the criticism easily. She was often met with coldness during public events. There were moments she was booed. British tabloids weren't kind. The Daily Mail, and the Mirror in particular, ran unflattering stories that kept rehashing her role in the failed royal marriage. It took years of calculated PR, carefully chosen charity work, and tightly controlled public appearances for Camilla to slowly gain acceptance. Even then, it was more tolerance than affection. She was never embraced the way Diana was. A more recent poll still placed Camilla far behind other royals in popularity. While Queen Elizabeth, Prince William, and even Princess Anne regularly ranked among the most liked, Camilla floated lower down the list. The public respect was lukewarm at best. And when Queen Elizabeth gave her blessing for Camilla to be called Queen Consort, not everyone cheered. Many felt the gesture honored Charles's wishes more than the people's. Now, when you set that next to Princess Anne's record, the difference is hard to ignore. Anne has been serving the crown tirelessly for over 50 years. She's known for her no-nonsense attitude and refusal to chase fame. In fact, she's often called the hardest-working royal. In 2022 alone, she carried out over 200 public engagements, more than any other member of the family, including the king himself. She's held military titles, represented the UK overseas countless times, and stayed scandal-free while doing it. Her charity work spans decades, including roles as president or patron of over 300 organizations. And unlike others, she's never chased the spotlight. She just gets the job done. When the people talk about respect for the monarchy, Anne's name always comes up. She has earned her place not by charm or romance, but by relentless duty and consistency. So now, with everything on the table, it's hard not to see why many view her as a steadier figure. But as we reveal next, this feels unexpected, especially when you look at the British monarchy's line of succession. The line of succession. By the standard royal order, Princess Anne is currently 18th in line to the throne. That's not exactly close to the top, but when you look at the full picture, things start to make more sense. The line of succession is usually determined by bloodline, legitimacy, and, since the 2013 succession to the Crown Act, gender no longer takes precedence. But this only applies to those born after October 28, 2011. So, while Princess Charlotte is ahead of Prince Louis due to this law, it doesn't apply to Princess Anne, who was born in 1950. That's why, despite being King Charles's only sister and second eldest child of Queen Elizabeth II, Anne is behind all of her younger brothers and their children. As it stands, the line begins with Prince William, the eldest son of King Charles. Next is William's three children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis. Then it moves to Prince Harry, followed by his children, Archie and Lilibet. After them, the line continues through Prince Andrew, Prince Edward, and their respective children and grandchildren. That's how Anne ended up in 18th place, despite her years of service and being a senior working royal. But just because someone is far down the list doesn't mean circumstances can't change. The royal family is bound by tradition, but it's not unbreakable. The monarchy has bent before, especially when public confidence is at stake. If you're familiar with royal stories, you'd know King Edward VIII abdicated in 1936. He gave up the throne to marry Wallis Simpson, an American divorcee. That move rocked the country, but it was allowed to happen, and it shifted the entire line, putting King George VI, Elizabeth's father, on the throne. So royal history has already proven that rules can be adjusted when necessary. And if you add King Charles's current health concerns to the mix, everything suddenly feels more fragile. In early 2024, Buckingham Palace announced that King Charles had been diagnosed with cancer. The news was shared with the public not long after he had undergone a routine procedure for an enlarged prostate. What was meant to be a relatively minor medical update quickly escalated into something far more serious. Just weeks later, the palace confirmed that doctors had discovered a separate issue during the procedure, one that turned out to be a form of cancer. The palace did not disclose the exact type or stage of the cancer, but it was enough to pull the king out of most public-facing duties. He began treatment almost immediately, which included regular hospital visits and what insiders considered an important medical care and supervision. While the official updates were calm and cautiously optimistic, royal watchers and medical experts noted the unusual swiftness with which Charles's public calendar was cleared. Every appearance cancelled and every meeting postponed was a sign that it was serious. In the following months, Charles made only a handful of brief public appearances. Each time he did, people commented on his thinner frame and visibly tired eyes. In April, he was seen greeting guests at Windsor Castle, and although he smiled and waved, his physical condition told a different story. Even his voice, usually commanding and full, sounded slightly strained. Many who saw the footage noted that he appeared frail and slow in his movements, differently from the man who had waited decades to ascend the throne. Behind closed doors, sources claimed that the treatment had taken a toll. There were reports of extended recovery periods between medical sessions and increased time spent in seclusion at Sandringham and Highgrove, his private residences. He was trying to heal, but healing takes time, and time isn't always something a monarch has in abundance. The situation is further worsened by the fact that Charles had only recently become king. He was crowned in May 2023, barely a year before his diagnosis became public. His reign had barely begun, yet already conversations had started about who might step in if his condition worsened. And that possibility wasn't far-fetched. In the British monarchy, when a sovereign is unable to perform their duties due to illness, a formal process known as the Regency Act can be triggered. It allows for another senior royal to assume responsibilities temporarily, without officially becoming monarch. Historically, this has only happened under extreme circumstances, but with Charles's condition, some began to wonder whether such a move was not imminent. And this is where Princess Anne steps in again. As Charles battles an illness that could keep him sidelined for months or even years, the question becomes who will step up to lead while the nation waits, not just in name, but in duty. The country demands leadership, continuity, and presence. Some match Princess Anne in those categories because she's someone the public has watched serve without question, without drama, and without asking for attention. Her potential rise is about stability during a time when even the future of the monarchy seems uncertain. While William is the natural next in line, he may not be ready, or even willing, to take over just yet, especially with 3 young children and a wife, Catherine, Princess of Wales, who is also dealing with health challenges. Besides, William has publicly stated in the past that he supports a more modern and slimmed-down monarchy. He might not want to leap into the role unless absolutely necessary. Then there's Prince Harry, who stepped back from royal duties in 2020. His departure from the family, along with ongoing tensions and his move to the United States, makes his return to royal leadership highly unlikely, at least for now. That leaves the question, who's left that the public trusts? Who's proven themselves over the years? And who has no scandal attached to their name? Princess Anne holds the respect of the people. She has decades of experience, good knowledge of royal duties, and a consistent track record of loyalty to the crown. She's shown no ambition for power, which ironically makes her more trusted in times like this. And if Charles were to make an emergency declaration, especially given his health, it could temporarily shift certain responsibilities to someone outside the usual line. That person wouldn't necessarily become the new monarch immediately, but they could act as a kind of regent, or even as a placeholder leader, while things get sorted out. Also, apart from the question of birthright, if the British public began to overwhelmingly support Anne stepping in, pressure could mount on the royal household to make unusual decisions. But what would it look like if Princess Anne becomes queen? Princess Anne's reign and what it means for Camilla and William. If Princess Anne does become queen, many believe her reign would be very different from what people are used to. It wouldn't be about glitter or grand moments. It would be about service, strength, and getting real work done without showing off. Princess Anne has never liked the spotlight. Even as a senior royal, she often goes unnoticed. But that's because she doesn't do things for attention. She does them because she believes in duty. Over the years, she's taken on more public engagements than almost anyone else in the royal family. She's always traveling, meeting people, supporting charities, and representing the crown in places that don't always get headlines. So, if she were to wear the crown, many experts say the monarchy would become more focused, smaller, and much more connected to real issues. It would be about helping people, showing up when it matters, and doing the job with care and honesty. She's also known for being firm and direct. That means she would likely cut back on unnecessary spending, reduce royal staff, and ask others in the family to do more. Some say she'd run things like a disciplined captain, with no fuss, no games, but just action. In addition, there's also the talk that under her reign, the royal family would focus more on charity work, veterans' welfare, and issues like healthcare, education, and supporting workers. Anne has always been close to these causes, especially through her long-standing work with Save the Children and her military involvement. She's not someone who just waves from balconies. She actually listens, takes notes, and follows up. Many believe her reign could help rebuild trust in the monarchy, especially with younger generations who feel disconnected from royal traditions. By leading with humility and hard work, Anne might give the crown a new face. Princess Anne has seen the family at its best and worst. She knows what works and what doesn't. If given the crown, she would likely choose what truly matters over what simply looks good. And in a time when the world is changing fast, that kind of leadership might be exactly what the monarchy needs. That kind of reign, built on duty, discipline, and quiet strength, stands in sharp contrast to how Queen Camilla has been seen over the years. Camilla's position in the royal family has always been complicated, and despite recent efforts to shape her image, she's still viewed by many as a royal figure who had to earn her place rather than grow into it naturally. Unlike Princess Anne, who was born into royalty and spent decades shaping a reputation built on hard work, Camilla entered the royal spotlight under heavy scrutiny. Her long and controversial history with King Charles never faded in the public's memory. Even though she eventually became queen consort, her path was full of criticism, tension, and ongoing debates about whether she should have had the title at all. Camilla has tried to support Charles in his duties and has taken on charitable work. One of her earliest focuses was osteoporosis awareness. Her mother and grandmother both died from the devastating bone disease, so this wasn't just another public cause, it was personal. In 2001, she became president of the Royal Osteoporosis Society and began speaking at medical events, encouraging early diagnosis and education. She visited hospitals, attended research briefings, and worked with doctors to help raise awareness. Camilla also became a strong supporter of literacy programs. She launched the Queen's Reading Room, a project aimed at encouraging people of all ages to develop a love for books. She held reading events, visited schools and libraries, and often recommended books she had read herself. Her commitment to this cause made her relatable to educators, parents, and children alike, and showed that she was trying to connect with people on a human level. Then, there's her work in the area of domestic violence. Camilla took on this incredibly sensitive issue with surprising depth. She met with survivors privately, gave emotional speeches about the silence and shame surrounding abuse, and worked closely with organizations offering support and shelter to victims. She sat with survivors, listened to their stories, and tried to amplify their voices. But despite all of this effort, Camilla's image has never truly recovered in the eyes of much of the British public. Now imagine all of that being shaken again. If Princess Anne steps forward as the one holding things together while Charles battles illness, Camilla could find herself pushed even further from the center of power. That shift might not sit well with her, not just because of her personal feelings, but because of what it means for the legacy she worked so hard to build. Some royal watchers say that behind the scenes this change could be deeply painful for Camilla. She's been through decades of judgment. Just when it seemed like she had finally been accepted, she might now feel like it's all being taken away. Losing the public spotlight to someone like Anne, who is seen as everything the crown should be, would be hard to swallow. Especially if Anne's rise includes stripping Camilla of her title. As rumored, it could feel like a complete reversal of everything Camilla thought she had secured. And when you've fought that long to be recognized, watching it all slip away, especially in favor of someone who's always been more trusted, might feel less like a change in leadership and more like personal rejection. And when people see that happening, you couldn't really blame her for feeling hurt. Also, behind the scenes at Buckingham Palace, things rarely happen without whispers, suggestions, or long looks exchanged behind closed doors. And when it comes to King Charles's decision to shift royal power toward his sister, Princess Anne, there's reason to believe his inner circle had more than a little influence. Charles has always been surrounded by a select group of senior courtiers, longtime aides, private secretaries, and trusted advisors. These are the people who understand the pulse of the institution, who monitor public sentiment, and who often speak the uncomfortable truths behind palace walls. Over the years, many within that circle have admired Princess Anne's work ethic, her no-nonsense approach, and the way she has never drawn unnecessary attention to herself. Some have likely felt that placing more responsibility on Anne could stabilize the monarchy, especially during a time when public trust is shaky and the royal family faces growing questions about its relevance. And that brings us back again to Prince William. If his father decides to bypass the tradition, even temporarily for Princess Anne, it changes everything. But William also knows Princess Anne well. He's watched her work tirelessly for the crown, often without praise and often without press coverage. He's said to admire her deeply, so while the move would sting, William is unlikely to show resentment. He understands the public mood. He knows the institution can't afford another scandal or misstep. And above all, he is loyal to the monarchy, to the country, and most of all, to his father. If Charles asked him to stand behind Anne, he probably will, even if it means stepping to the side, at least for now. Still, emotionally, it can't be easy. For a man who has walked a path carved out for him since childhood, being told that someone else, however deserving, is taking the reins, would be a lot. These are the personal struggles the public may never see. But behind the smiles and formal nods, there may be deep emotions at play. This includes acceptance, disappointment, and perhaps even fear of what it all means for the future of the crown. What do you think about Princess Anne possibly stepping into a role that was never expected of her? And do you believe William will truly be okay with this shift? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop your opinions in the comments below. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the following video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.